You're listening to the Face Value Podcast, episode 134. How to decode Alarmist, Fatphobic news stories. Let's do it.
Perfect.
Hello, my sweaty nippled friends. How are you today? You know what? I was like, I need to put a chewing gum in because, I like a nice smelling breath, but you can't smell my breath through the podcast airs. So, yeah, I don't need to worry about it. I was just thinking about that though. Isn't that so funny? As I have a sip of my cup of tea. So hey, I wanted to talk about let's talk about how we can arm ourselves with some knowledge so that throughout the rest of our lives, when you see a splashy new headline about how fat people are about to spontaneously combust, about how this is the new thing, this new drug has come out, this new thing has come up, and everyone's like, well, look at this study shows, this article shows, this news thing shows that fat people are whatever. We can take a breath and begin to dissect it a little bit to see, is this good science, or is this maybe not so good, and what am I looking for exactly, and how can I kind of quickly scan something for some telltale signs of shitness. Because these news articles are often linked to research, to papers, etc., and we take it on face value that the stuff being reported is factual, and that the study is good and factual and valid and all that type of stuff. So we're giving people credit where credit is not maybe necessarily due, because we're all humans, right? And we want to get our job done, we want to get paid, and we want to go out and watch some Netflix and go and relax a little bit. And so journalists are under a lot of pressure to bust out articles, bust out stories, and they are not maybe knowledgeable or even interested in looking at the actual science and dissecting it and saying, this is not great, when they could just say, okay, I'm going to take the headlines from this thing, make it into an article, make it into a post, make it into a social media thing, whatever, and it's a sexy headline, it's about fatness, we get lots of clicks on that, and so why not, right? And of course there's some journalists are more aligned with ethics, and some maybe not so much. And I think really what it is probably a lot of pressure in capitalism, and kind of work and pump out articles and get this done, and what is going to be the most clickbaity stuff. And the clickbaity stuff is the things that's alarming, right? Or the things that's like, we have a solution to this alarming problem. And so a lot of it is, I just wrote the O word into Google, and I went to news to see what we've got today on the 21st of July, 2022, on news on the O word. And it's all, I can feel my chest tightening, and I can feel that kind of rush that my brain is experiencing from seeing these images and seeing these titles. And actually, one of them is fat positive. Oh my goodness! Oh my god! Yeah. So, I mean, if I hadn't thought about this stuff, then I might look at these headlines and think, oh my god, oh, maybe I was wrong about this whole fat positive thing. Maybe new research has come out and said that all fat activists are pieces of shit. Oh god. Yeah, so if we have this information on how to dissect these things, maybe we can be like, all right, so we've got an article here that says something terrible about fat people, or some miracle drug or whatever device to make fat people not fat. Okay, let's have a think. Let's look into it and see if it's real. Or let's see if fat activists are talking about it and they've done that work. But it doesn't take too much, right? Honestly, they tell on themselves, all right? So before we get into that, let's talk about some definitions, okay? So I'm going to put links for everything in the show notes, fiercefatty.com/134 for this episode. So I'll also stick a video. There's like a 3-minute video in here, which is good, which I like. I'm going to stick in. Let's hope I don't get like copyright claimed or whatever. But let's talk about because there's different words that go around, right? Like research paper and journal article and study, research article, meta-analysis, systematic reviews. Like, what the heck is all that? So let's start off. Research paper. Okay, so this is quote. So a lot of this is like resources from universities and university libraries who are talking about this and teaching about this. So quote, history professor Dr. Jane Simonson once said with regards to research papers that the work and design are your own, but you can't do it without relying on the efforts and wisdom of others. A research paper is a form of writing, usually used in the world of academia by students or colleges or universities, designed to investigate and research a topic in which they find their conclusion. The student is encouraged and often required to support their findings with facts from reputable resources. A typical research paper can range from 5 to 15 pages. And there can be an argumentative research paper or an analytical research paper. So argumentative, the student will take a controversial subject, create an inform the audience of the topic and explain their stance, known as a thesis. An analytical research paper, the student is required to critique a subject, which is usually in the form of a question, mostly known as an essay or exploration. So basically, a research paper is it might be assigned by a professor, like go and study this and make a research paper on XYZ, and then going out and look at the resources. If you were like me at university, Jesus, like fucking the resources that I remember. I don't know, like I'm 37, right? When I was at university, the internet was kind of new still. Well, it was in my life, and so it was like research from books and quoting books and this thing called Wikipedia that was like the best, and totally like would quote from that a lot. Oh. I did an art degree, by the way, so I wasn't doing a lot of writing, so that was okay. But anyway, okay, so a journal article, quote, according to Simon Fraser University, a journal article is an article that is written about a very specific topic. Furthermore, you'll typically see a journal article authored by an expert in some field, written by another expert in the same respective field. This kind of writing is also called peer reviews. A journal article is a short paper on a particular topic that gets mainly published in issues or periodicals. It will often include up-to-date research on that subject, including recent developments, reviews on a method or product, short papers, previewing ideas. With a journal article, you may find information, for example, on the latest medicine or techniques in a certain field. Okay, so that is a lot of what a journal article is, a lot of what we're hopefully going to be looking at when it comes to looking at studies, right? Is let me break it down. Okay, so there's someone who's an expert in a subject. So this one of the videos I watched about this, it was a paleontologist. So think about Ross from Friends. So Ross from Friends is out digging up dinosaurs, and he digs up a dinosaur, and it turns out that Tyrannosaurus Rex had, I don't know, pink eyeballs. Okay, new study, Tyrannosaurus Rex has pink eyeballs. We never knew. I've got the evidence for it. I've got this finding. We found lots of T-Rexes with, you know, these new pink eyeballs, and so I'm going to write a paper on it. And then, well, now that I'm Ross from Friends, Ross from Friends is now going to submit what he has written about his findings to a journal. So you can go online, and there'll be lots of different journals. So it could be like journals related to different industries, journals relating to different sciences. And to get into a journal, it's very, very difficult. The process for getting into a journal is you submit your paper, and then the editor of the journal, or the staff of the editor, would read your work, and they would assess it on many different things, like, is it interesting, is it new, is it relevant, is the research good? And if they think yeah to all that, they then may send it to experts in that field to have a look at. And the experts in the field will read the work from Ross from Friends and say, actually, Ross, can you tweak this? Can you change that? This is not great. This is great. And so send the paper back to Ross from Friends and say, make these changes and we shall publish it. Or maybe they might just say, looks fucking amazing, Ross. How did you find these pink eyeballed Tyrannosaurus Rexes? And then it will be published in the journal or periodical or whatever it is, and that would be online, and you'll be able to get like a magazine version type thing as well. And so most people who submit things to journals, it's like 90% plus are rejected, right? And this whole process could take quite a while. It could take a few months up to a few years. So it's a big deal. And because it's peer reviewed too, it means that other people who are experts have said, yeah, we think that this looks good. They're kind of like referees. But here's the issue too, is that these journals or periodicals, they too have to kind of think about things maybe in a little bit the same way that a journalist does. Like, is this interesting? Is this newsworthy? Right? Or is this boring? Like, if you had a paper which is like, hey, be nice to fat people, or something like that, they might say, boring. But if it said something like, here's a new device that's straight off the market that makes fat people thin, that might be seen as more interesting. And so there's a bias there on who gets published. Also, imagine if there is a O-word researcher, okay? And then the article is on fat people and how they're terrible. It goes to peer review to other people who specialize in obesity research. And just by that title, we know that they're biased against fat people. So they're more likely to say, this looks good, because of their own biases, even though science may point to different things, right? So there's going to be biases everywhere anyway, even though it is it's peer reviewed, it's taken more time. It's not just like I'm making up, some random old story, and it's hard work, right, to get to that place where it's you have a peer reviewed journal article in a periodical or whatever, right? So let me talk about the differences between the differences between what we've spoken about, the differences, research papers, research. Okay, so research papers, research articles. Let's talk about the difference between those. Okay, so now, what are some of the key differences between these two methods of writing? Research papers are written traditionally by a student at a university or college, and their work is typically assigned. A journal article is an article about a subject that was recently researched or reviewed and written by an expert in that field. While both forms utilize the same techniques, a research paper gets done under the evaluation of a teacher or an instructor. Another small difference is the extent of the references used. Most often in a journal article, a reader can expect to find an extensive bibliography, whereas a research paper won't warrant as extensive of a reference list. A research paper doesn't get published in any publication unless it's in a reference on how to write one, whereas a journal article gets submitted to periodicals or magazines. So a research article, a written report of a research study or a commentary on or an analysis of a topic of research or research methodology. Original research articles are the most common type of journal article. So original research is, hey, I've done a study, or hey, I've made a discovery. And that's the most common type of journal article. They're detailed studies reporting new work and are classified as primary literature. You may find them referred to as original articles, research, or even just articles, depending on the journal. Okay, so let's talk about systematic reviews and meta-analysis. So a systematic review answers a defined research question by collecting and summarizing all empirical evidence. So empirical evidence means the information obtained through observation and documentation of certain behavior and patterns or through an experiment. Empirical evidence is a quintessential part of the scientific method of research that is applicable in many disciplines. So let me read that again. A systematic review answers a defined research question by collecting and summarizing all empirical evidence that fits pre-specified eligibility criteria. I'm gonna make this simple in a second, okay? I'm gonna give you a Ross from Friends thing. A meta-analysis is the use of statistical methods to summarize the results of these studies. Systematic reviews, just like other research articles, can be of varying quality. They are a significant piece of work. The center estimates it takes 9 to 24 months to do a systematic review. Not all systematic reviews contain meta-analysis. Meta-analysis is the use of statistical methods to summarize the results of independent studies. By combining information from all relevant studies, meta-analysis can provide more precise estimates on the effect of healthcare than those derived from individual studies within a review. A meta-analysis goes beyond critique and integration and conducts secondary statistical analysis on the outcomes of similar studies. It is a systematic review that uses quantitative methods to synthesize and summarize the results. Okay, so let's give an example. All right, so a study is completed on weight bias in kids in Sweden age 10 to 17. Then someone else does a study on weight bias in psychologists in the UK. Then some other research team does a study and is published a few years later about weight bias in men in Australia, etc., etc., etc. Then, okay, so we've got all of these studies. They're all kind of linked. They're all kind of about weight bias. They're kind of similar, but kind of can be linked together. So one day, a group of researchers who may be interested in weight bias will say, whoa, there's loads of studies on weight bias. Let's do a systematic review. Then they're going to review and summarize the findings in one research paper. So we're like, systematic review. We found that men in Australia struggle with weight bias, and so do kids in Sweden, and so do psychologists in the UK, etc., etc. So the research group may or may not do a meta-analysis as part of their systematic review. And if they do, they will look at data and stats and bring it all together. So the systematic review, it's like, okay, so we have all of these voices speaking in a group. So we've got a group of people, and this is like, one research paper says, oh, blah, blah, blah. And the other research paper says, oh, blah, blah, blah. And so then this systematic review is that one person who's like, oh, I'm going to get all these people and these ideas together, and I'm going to listen to all of them, and I'm going to kind of summarize what they say. And so that paper is going to be summarizing everyone in the room who's kind of done similar studies into one big thing. Now, the meta-analysis is like, okay, everybody, let's look at your stats. And so you've listened to what they've got to say, and they're like, this is my summary, this is what I've got to say. And then the meta-analysis is, okay, what stats have you got? Give me your numbers. And they'll say, we found that 17% of blah, blah, blah. And then someone else will say, we found that 12% of la, 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 la. And then they will put that all together, and then that will be a meta-analysis. So saying that, we found out that psychologists in the UK eat 12 carrots per year. And we found out that kids in Australia eat 10 carrots a year. And some other study says someone else eats 8 carrots a year. And so they'll say, oh, turns out that there's the average carrot eating a year is 10 carrots because it was 8, 10, and 12. And let's say this is never going to happen, probably, but they all had the same amount of people in the study. Exactly. So then, that's like a very basic math, but it could be that the one study had a lot more people and another study had less people. And so this is helpful for when we have lots of studies with maybe not a lot of participants, because then we can group it all together with similar studies and say, we've got more data, but they have to have like similar types of data and data points so that they can be comparative. So if one study said that psychologists eat 12 carrots a year, and another study said psychologists eat 14 turnips a day, it wouldn't be comparative data, right? Unless it was like, let's look at how much root vegetables healthcare professionals eat, So, but if it was to be like carrots versus carrots, then it wouldn't work. So not all meta-analysis will have a systematic review and vice versa. So you could have a systematic review, which is hey everybody, what did you say? And we said this. And then meta-analysis is, hey everybody, what's your stats? Give me them stats. They're so sexy. And so here as well, we need to think about quantitative and qualitative. Quantitative research deals with numbers and statistics, so that would be meta-analysis, and qualitative research deals with words and meanings. Okay. So, both are great because it's bringing lots of research together, right? The more information we have, the better quality the data. So there's some definitions for you. And so when we're thinking about approaching a paper which is about fatness or something related to fatness, there's some key things that we want to keep in our mind and things that we want to remember, right? And even if we just see a headline, the key things are long-term weight loss is not possible for the vast majority of people. The reason why I say key things we need to remember is that there are a lot of assumptions made in studies, in papers, in articles, etc., where we have to have a base understanding of what we know is true at the moment, right? And so we can go in and with the knowledge that, for example, smoking is probably not great for your health, right? And that stopping smoking is probably good for your health, right? Like that's pretty well established. And there's not many people disagreeing with that, right? And so it's pretty well established too that weight loss is not possible for the vast majority of people. And these other things too. So we can say we've got this baseline of knowledge, and when someone makes sweeping statements that say the opposite, then we can say, there's a little red flag that I'm going to raise. There's a little kind of, is that true? Because what I've noticed is a lot of these articles start with sweeping statements that things like, we're in the middle of a raging obesity epidemic, and fat people are just blah 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 blah. And another thing they'll say is predictions show that the X amount of the population will be fat by the year 2030, and they'll have predictions which are we don't know about, and they're saying that fatness is bad, right? That fatness makes people unhealthy, and it doesn't say why, just the existence of fat people and fatness. That's like kind of like basic things there of, okay, but we don't know that it is actual fatness on a body, but we do know any negative health outcomes are due to weight stigma, due to weight cycling, due to lack of access to healthcare. So they're starting off with faulty statements, untrue statements. So anyway, so key things to remember is long-term weight loss is not possible for the vast majority of people. You can be fat and healthy. Not everyone individually, but fat people as a population. It's okay to be fat and unhealthy. There are interventions you can take to mitigate any increased health mortality risks from being fat, again at a population level. However, there is no evidence to prove that actually having more adipose tissue on your body, fat tissue on your body, leads to poorer health outcomes. What we do know is that what causes poorer health outcomes in fat folks is weight cycling, that's dieting, subpar or lack of access to healthcare, and experiencing weight bias. Any type of intentional weight loss, including weight loss surgery, is very likely harmful and ineffective. People have better outcomes when they don't focus on weight. Health is largely out of our control. However, we can engage in things that improve our well-being if we wish, but no morality points scored for those that do. Okay, so when we're approaching a study, so this is what's going to happen. We see an alarming thing. Fat people are terrible. It's the Daily Mail in the UK has told us. Fox News has told us a brand new study has come out that says that being fat means that babies are gonna die from fatness, or something terrible is gonna happen. Oh my goodness, is this true? I don't want that. That sounds terrible. Let's go in and do some investigating. So first off, if possible, let's click on the link of the article or whatever, and see if we can find a link to the study. Surprise, fucking surprise. Often they won't have a link to the study because who the fuck cares? We don't need to link to the study. So you might have to go and do some Googling to try and find the study yourself. You also might not be able to access it because it could be behind a paywall. But you may be able to get the kind of overview, which could be helpful. You may need to go and ask someone who might have access. So someone working at a university, go into your local library or log into your local library online and see if you can get access there. But you might get enough information just from the article or the news piece, whatever it is. So first off, the first thing to think is, was this study done on humans? Often, studies are done on animals, rats, mice. And the results are reported as if the same outcomes would be true in humans. I don't know about you, but I'm not an animal. I'm a human being. And my body works differently from a cute little mousie. So it's like, scientists will be like, I have an idea, let's test it out on some mice, some rats, whatever, and then if it looks good, then maybe we can move to human trials. But reporting on something when it's the stage of we did some research on rats, it's like, fucking hell. Do you remember that song, Jizz in My Pants, by the Lonely Island? And it was basically like, someone's so turned on by basic things in life, like holding hands or holding a door open or getting groceries, that they jizz in their pants. This is the jizzing in the pants version. It's like something, we did a study on animals and it says something which is sexy and we're going to jizz in our pants and report on it before there's any actual good evidence. It's like I might be going on a date with someone, then it's like, oh my God, I just came. It's like, chill. So I remember talking to someone and was like, and the person was like, well, we've got science to show that just having fat tissue means that free radicals are spiraling through our bodies. And I was like, oh, sounds interesting. Do a little research. Oh, it was done on fucking rats. Oh, really? Okay. Yeah. Come back to me once they've done the, human things and it's, and they've done this and that and la 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 la. But no. Okay, so that's the first one. Easy. Number 2. If it was done on humans, how many? Do you remember, I'm going to talk about this in a little bit, but remember that, what was it, like 2 years ago, 1 year ago, the jaw wiring device that came out of New Zealand? Super fatphobic, New Zealand, and also UK, super fatphobic, and it was wiring people's jaws shut, and they said that they had astounding results, and it turns out it was 7 people that they'd done the study on. Yeah, like, really? No, seven people? There's not enough information. Now, that study could be included in a meta-analysis if many other people had done similar types of studies, but hopefully it will stop right fucking there, because it is a piece of shit garbage, hateful, awful, terrible. Okay, so how many people? 1,000 people, that's when we start to get good data. Thing is, 1,000 people that's a lot of people, and that costs time and that costs money. Why do we need to spend time on money if we want to sell something, which is what these people did with the jaw wiring thing? They wanted to sell something. Okay, so how was the data collected? So I want to quote, in social sciences, structured interviews and self-completion questionnaires are perhaps the 2 most common ways of collecting quantitative data. How the individuals in a sample, i.e. those approached to be surveyed, have been identified is crucial in determining the representativeness of the results. There are 2 main types of samples, namely probability and non-probability samples. A probability sample is a sample in which every individual in the population has the same chance of being included. It is also a prerequisite for being able to generalize the findings to the population. To illustrate the difference, let's say you survey first-year students by asking student clubs to share the survey on social media. Since this non-probability snowball sample has a greater likelihood of reaching students active in such clubs, the results won't be representative or generalizable. So as an example, another example, I did this thing where I interviewed people on the streets of Vancouver. Specifically in Kitsilano, which is the headquarters for Lululemon, very yoga, very thin, very granola, all of that type of stuff. And then also I did it downtown, so lots of tourists. So I had then a thin friend ask people questions about what they think of fat people, and then I did it as a fat person. So it was different of kind of like what would they say to the thin person and what would they say to fat people. And that wasn't, so I wouldn't say, oh, that's good data, because we were in kits. What's the likelihood of most of the people that we approached were thin, white, yogis with a lot of weight bias? pretty high. But then also we went downtown where there's more tourists. What are the chances of the tourists being a little bit more reflective of the world? Maybe higher, but still, you would have to, if that was a formal study, you'd have to say, these are the people that we spoke to. And to make it good, you'd have to do it with thousands of people over lots of different areas and all that type of stuff. So see how collecting good data can be more difficult, right? And then sometimes you see in studies, it's like, when people are trying to do studies and it's like really hard to get any participants. I know that's really difficult. So if you ever see a study saying looking for participants and they're looking for fat folks and it's not some, a fat positive study, then go and help them out because it's really hard to get people. Okay, so how was the data collected? Was it done on humans? How many humans? Next, how long did they follow the participants? So if you see diet adverts, you'll see all these kind of claims of like, it works 50% of the time, 100% of the time, or other way around. It works 100% of the time, 50% of the time, or some other things like, amazing results, blah, 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 blah. Then you've got like tiny asterisks on the bottom of the screen, results not typical. But you don't get to see it because the diet companies will stop following participants after a little while because we all know that participants in diets gain weight at 3 years to 5 years. And so to say a diet works, we need data post 5 years. So that's a big clue. How long are people following them? How long are they following folks? If it's less than 3 to 5 years, it's going to raise an eyebrow because we know weight loss is going to happen. Weight gain is going to happen. Next, do the authors have conflicting interests? Why was the study done? Okay, so often people writing papers when they're talking about how to get people to lose weight are paid by weight loss or anti-fat companies, and they must disclose their financial interests so we can understand how much bias they have coming into their findings. Also, what was the reason that the study was done in the first place? Was it to support a new drug or a weight loss method? Like, why was the study done? So, quote, whether the aim of the research was to generate income, lobby for policy change, evaluate the impact of a program, or develop a new theoretical framework, this will influence the research questions, data collection and analysis, and the presentation of the results. In order to make best use of the findings and place them in context for your use, it is advisable to bear the aim of the study in mind. Also, it is of equal importance to check if a third party has sponsored or funded the study, as this could further affect the objectivity of the study. If, for example, a student recruitment fair organizer sponsors a study on the efficiency of different recruitment methods, you should be critical of the results, particularly if student fairs emerge as the most efficient recruitment method. Yeah, so that's a really good point of, if it shows good findings or most positive findings and it's supporting the people who are doing the funding, then you can be like Okay, so next to consider is it valid and reliable? So I want to quote, in research terms, reliability refers to consistency. Just as you can count on the consistency of your friend, when something is reliable in science, this indicates some level of consistency. In science, validity refers to accuracy. If something is not accurate, it is not valid. Just as reliability applies at multiple levels of the scientific process, so too does validity. Measurement validity refers to how valid or accurate a measure is. As you can see from their definition, validity and reliability are both key points you need to examine in any research study. For a study to be reliable, the same experiment must be conducted under the same conditions to generate the same results. For a research study to have validity, you must look at several aspects. Internal validity dictates how an experimental design is structured and encompasses all of the steps of the scientific research method. External validity is the process of examining the results and questioning whether there are any other possible causal relationships. Let me repeat that. External validity is the process of examining the results and questioning whether there are any other possible causal relationships. It's like stats 101, right? Just because something happens doesn't mean we know the reason why it happens. And that is the basis of fat science, right? That sometimes we can say fatness is correlated with XYZ, and that word correlated is so important because we don't know why. And where people's minds go to is it's the fat cells themselves. It's the fat person. It's the reason why someone is fat is because they don't exercise and they eat bad food, and all of this in quotation marks, and that's not, the data is not showing that, right? It's like saying, I open my curtains in the morning and it's bright outside, and it's bright outside because the street lamps are on, not that the sun is shining. It's like saying, so the only evidence I've got, the only data I've got is it's bright outside, and then coming to the conclusion that it's street lamps that's making it bright. Well, it's like, no, and so unless they've done the research to say why, and in fatness we don't have that research, we don't know why. So continuing, reliability and validity are both how well a method measures something. Reliability refers to the consistency of a measure, where the results can be reproduced under the same conditions. Validity refers to the accuracy of a measure, where the results really do represent what they are supposed to measure. And so that last line there is also important. Whether results do represent what they are supposed to measure. So a lot of studies, it's really interesting. They'll say, and I'm going to break down the jaw wiring study thing. They'll say, I mean, it's just, there's so many things I can say about this. First, they presume that fatness is a problem, right? Then they presume that fatness is an epidemic. Then they do this study and say we're going to reduce fatness by putting people on a liquid diet, and they have terrible outcomes. They temporarily lose weight. They stop the study as soon as they start putting on weight. So instead of saying, hey, we did this thing, it was fucked up, doesn't work, and it's on faulty, there's lots of faulty assumptions made to the reason why we're doing this study, they just said, oh, it turns out great, it's life-changing, I can't remember what the words, I'm going to tell you in a moment. And it's like, what? What? That's not what your own work says. Your own work says something completely different. And whether the results really do represent what they're supposed to measure. What are we doing this for? I mean, and I know this is not directly related, but what are they doing this for? They're doing this theoretically, they didn't mention, to make people healthy. But there's no results to show that people were healthier, only that people temporarily lost weight and had a sucky time doing it. Fun. Okay, so finally, is it peer-reviewed? Peer-reviewed means that other professionals, academics, have done a sort of quality control on the work to make sure it's up to standard. Let's talk about this with an example. The University of Otago in New Zealand tweeted, Otago and UK researchers have developed a world first, that's not true, weight loss device, that's not true, to help the fight of the global epidemic, that's not true, and that's not true, an intraoral device that restricts a person to a liquid diet. That's true. So, okay. A world first weight loss device. No, because they've had dual wiring before. This is, okay, technically they use magnets instead of more wires. So technically, though we've seen dual wiring before, weight loss device, it's a temporary weight loss device. Help fight the global obesity epidemic. It doesn't exist. So already we're starting with a lot of yeah, yeah, okay, but let's look at the study anyway. So it was published in a British Dental Journal. I did a whole episode on this, and Diet Drugs episode 92 called "What's Up with the New Dual Wiring and Diet Drugs." Episode 92. Go listen to it if you want to be infuriated. So the lead researcher was Otago University's Pro-Vice Chancellor Professor Paul Brunton, who claimed that it is a non-invasive, reversible. Is starving yourself reversible in regards to the damage it does to your psychological health and that experience of having to walk around the world with your jaw clamped shut? It's reversible in regards to you can take it out of your mouth, a dentist can. Economical. What? No. What the heck? It costs thousands of dollars. In what way is it economical? An attractive alternative to surgical procedures. I mean, no, and no. I mean, it is better than surgical procedures. I don't know by how much. Well, I guess it's reversible. So, I mean, it's not an attractive alternative. All of it needs to fuck off, these surgeries and this thing. So if we're thinking about the things that we've just spoken about, let me just go through the list again. Was it done on humans? If it was done on humans, how many? How was the data collected? How long did they follow participants? Do the authors have conflicting interests? Why was the study done? Is it valid and reliable? Is it peer-reviewed? Okay, so 7 white women. So tiny numbers, white women. So we don't have a representative, of New Zealand population. How long did they follow the women? 2 weeks. Oh my goodness, that's such a long time, you say. Yes, that was sarcasm. 2 weeks long. 2 weeks. These motherfuckers couldn't even follow them for any longer. 2 weeks. Over 2 weeks. They must have had astounding results, considering all of the hoo-ha with this world first weight loss device. It's going to help the global obesity epidemic. They lost 5% weight. I know. Wow. So amazing. 2 women didn't finish the study. 2 weeks after the device was removed, they were reweighed. Surprise, fucking surprise, the weight was coming back. And that's where the data ended. Let's not fucking follow them for any longer because we know what it's going to show. All the weight and more has come back. And so the lead researcher says, quote, "The fact is, there are no adverse consequences with this device." When in his own study, in his own words, he reported the women felt discomfort, speech issues, feeling tense and embarrassed, and decreased satisfaction with life. The fact is, there are no adverse consequences with this device. Oh, and that's what he's reported, not what after, sometimes after, it takes time after these traumas that have happened for us to really unpack it. I wonder how many of those 7 women, 5 years down the line being like, I can't believe I did that. I can't believe that I was told that was a good idea. I can't believe that they would do something so barbaric to me. and I think that the effects from that 2 weeks, just 2 weeks, is going to be life-changing for those women. And also them being like, oh, you're at the cutting edge of science, you've got this device, and what the fuck is wrong with me that I can't continue to lose weight unless my jaw is wired shut? We all know, listeners of the show, that it's because they're on a liquid diet and their brains are like, please, for the love of God, feed me food. And their brains are doing everything in their power to make sure that they are fed and not return to that state where they have a jaw wired shut with a liquid diet. And also, just looking at the introduction to this study, quote, the main barrier for people for successful weight loss is compliance. That is not true. They just making up lies. Continuing, and this helps them establish new habits. What? New habits? Not eating? Allowing them to comply with a low-calorie diet for a period of time. It really kickstarts the process. No one has ever said that it's hard to kickstart a diet. No one is saying it's hard to start a diet. Well, I mean, yes, it is hard to start a diet, but that's the time that, everyone's excited. If you were told, hey, I've got this magic thing, if you do this thing, I guarantee you're going to be thin, it's cutting edge, it's great, you're going to be excited and be like, fuck yeah, let's do this, right? It's kickstart the process. No, it doesn't. It kickstart fucking disordered relationship with your body and with food. So even in the text, right, we can go in and be like, the introduction, the summary, and the summary is all like fatness is terrible, everyone's fat and everyone's going to die, and la 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 la. Let's move to ethics declaration. So right at the bottom, the authors note that, and as anticipated by the ethics application, patent protection in the device was sought, with that being done through a new non-active holding company in which the research collaborators had proportionate ownership interests. Oh, surprise, surprise. So they're flogging this piece of shit thing, and they did the research. Oh, and shit research. So this study, it blew up, right? Some people, luckily, with the things of, holy shit, what the fuck, this is terrible. And other people being like, finally, a cure to fatness, those greedy fatties, because we know that it is a compliance issue, that fat people just can't stop eating. LOL, that's why their jaws shut, lols. And a lot of people read that, and I can imagine a lot of people just take it for fact. A scientific study? Science? Study? Without being like, oh, it was fucking 7 women who 2 dropped out and the study was for 2 weeks. And you're like, is this? Oh, and actually they were trying to sell this device. Oh, okay, yeah. Yep, no bias there. Great science. So we can go in and look at these things and be like, right, yep. So some of the things that I just had a quick look at. The news on the O word. First thing that came up, common migraine drugs may help treat fatness. O word. A mouse study finds. Well, at least they put in the title, a mouse study finds, because normally it would be common migraine drugs treat obesity, right? And then you would have to click into it, do a little research, and then find out that it's a fucking mouse study. At least that one says it, so we can be like, okay, well, yeah. The next thing I saw was FDA approves this drug for the treatment of fatness in adolescents ages 12 to 17. So I clicked on it. It was from the company who manufactures the drugs, who paid for the research. Surprise, surprise. They say it's amazing, it's wonderful, all those things. Look at the study, and they They didn't study children, so I don't know how it is now being approved for children. And it was over 56 weeks, remember, not over the 3 years. And they lost a tiny amount of weight. Yes. You know, and that was just me looking at it for about 5 minutes. You know, nothing too much. So we keep these in mind. And some tips from professors on how to read a scholarly article, an academic article, a peer-reviewed article is, they say, look at the abstract first. So the abstract is just like right at the top. Then look at the tables and the data, because that's normally where the juicy stuff is. And that's where they show their ass, right? Like the draw wiring thing. Like you saw this table so tiny because they had such little data. And then you see the chart going down, down, down for weight loss. And then blip, going up. So it's just, that's really easy to be like, look at the intro. Look at the results. Look at the conclusions. And look at the references. So are they new? Are they interesting? Are they relevant? And Google everything you don't understand, because you're not the intended audience. And I fucking hate this. I hate this. It's so elitist. And why are we always having to, have information that is so not accessible to people? Why can't we have this video series, which is an expert explains things to like a 5-year-old, explains their subject to a 5-year-old, a 10-year-old, a 15-year-old, someone who's in university studying their thing, someone who's got a master's in their thing, and then someone who's a peer, right? They explain their subject matter in lots of different ways. And it's like, why don't we have information like that? So you can select what level you want to read at. And I'd be like, give me the 5-year-old thing. Explain it in rainbows and glitter, please. So that we can, so it's accessible, right? And it's not that someone is less intelligent if they want the accessible version. It's just that we all learn in different ways. And that stuff for me is just so, it's thick, and my brain, is like, for fuck's sake, why do you have to put that word in there that I have to then go and spend time and Google it and understand the meaning and then go back to it when we could make these things more equitable? And again, it's written for their peers, but can they not, have a like summary for people to be able to access it easily and be like, this is what this paper says in a sentence. So you can go, oh, cool, I'm going to read it more, or I'm not. And having all that behind a paywall, I bet you, I don't know this, but I bet you the people who are doing all the hard work are not getting paid, and the people producing the journal are probably the ones who's getting paid and all that type of stuff. Bet ya. Yeah, so if you do see something that comes up and you're like, oh my God, it's true, then take a breath and remember, like, who is this done on? How long? And, not all studies has to be 3 to 5 years, right? Because that's just what we know about losing weight. But if you want to know how many carrots a psychologist is eating, that could be a short-term thing, right? But in regards to weight and that type of stuff, do they have interests, financial interests, which is a lot of the time, especially new drugs that have come out, it's the drug company who's paying for the studies. So yeah, and sometimes you just need to read what the thing says, the abstract, the beginning of it, and it will say, we did a study on two pigeons, and it turns out that pigeons don't like wearing hats. And then the news article will be like, flock of pigeons love wearing berets. And you're like, what? Hang on a minute. The study says we did a study on 2 pigeons and they didn't like it. You know, it can be as simple as that, where you're like, oh, okay. Well, that's silly. Yeah, because they don't do a good job of hiding the stuff. The stuff. All right, well, thanks for hanging out with me today. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And I'll see you in a while. Alligator. Stay fierce, fatty.
Perfect.